America. The threat comes from what it calls right-wing extremists in this country. The report says people who are opposed to restricting Second Amendment rights to bear arms or who are concerned about illegal immigration and border security could well fall under the Department of Homeland Security definition of an extremist. Gene Meserve has our report.
Political conservatives are fired up.
This is an effort to criminalize political dissent, standard, ordinary, everyday political dissent.
This fury a reaction to an assessment from the Department of Homeland Security saying right-wing extremist groups could exploit fears about the economic downturn, gun control, and the election of an African-American president to attract new recruits. It says groups dedicated to a single issue, such as opposition to abortion or immigration, may fall within the definition of extremist.
We are not extremists. They are the extremists.
To make its case, DHS cites a surge in purchases of guns and ammunition and the recent shooting of 3 Pittsburgh police officers by a man reportedly influenced by racist ideology and fears of gun confiscations. An organization that tracks extremist groups thinks DHS has the picture at least partially right.
The election of Obama certainly has played for these groups in the last 6, 7, 8 months. The economy, I think, is much more questionable. We really don't know if that is having an effect.
A Homeland Security official says DHS is not trying to squelch free speech. There is no link between extremists being talked about in that report and conservative political thinkers, activists, and voters. But conservatives aren't buying it.
If the Bush administration had done this to left-wing extremists, it would be all over the press as an obvious trampling on the First Amendment rights of folks and dissent.
In fact, in January, there was a warning about left-wing extremists. It was issued by the Obama administration, but both reports were begun under President Bush. This new DHS assessment says right-wing extremists may try to radicalize disgruntled veterans to exploit their military knowledge. Some conservatives find that offensive, but DHS points to Oklahoma City bomber Timothy McVeigh, a veteran of the First Iraq War. Lou?
Gene, this is, at the very least, a broad, general threat assessment, if you will. Why are there not names named and specific targets referenced here if there is a legitimate threat to the interests of the United States?
Well, they say there is no specific threat here, but they sent this out to law enforcement all across the country so they would be aware of what DHS perceives as something that's emerging, and so they can get an even better assessment of what's going on through the eyes of those local officials. That's why this was issued at this point in time. This was attempted, once again, relying in some measure on the Southern Poverty Law Center last month with the so-called Missouri documents. The Missouri State Patrol had to withdraw the so-called fusion report. Is that likely to happen here? I don't know. The Missouri report went considerably further. As you know, it mentioned to be on the lookout for people with certain sorts of political bumper stickers on their car. This report goes nowhere near that. And by the way, I don't think they relied on the Southern Poverty Law Center. No, this was DHS's own research. Yeah. Right. But certainly they seem to be in sync to a certain degree here. Both the department and the Southern Poverty Law Center say they are seeing some increase in those right-wing groups. All right. Thank you very much. Gene Meserve from Washington. Well, we'd like to know what you think about all of this. Our poll question tonight is, do you think a person concerned about borders and ports that are unsecured, illegal immigration, Second Amendment rights, or a returning veteran from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan is likely or even possibly probable, as the Department of Homeland Security suggests, to be a right-wing extremist? Yes or no? Cast your vote at LouDobbs.com. We'll have the results here later in the broadcast. 92% of you say a person concerned about borders and ports that are unsecured, if you're worried about illegal immigration, Second Amendment rights, or a returning veteran from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. It is not likely, as the Homeland Security Department suggests, to be a right-wing extremist. Are you listening, Janet Napolitano?